but we have to remember that the voices that we are here condemning are not the only voices in the world, and they're not the voices we should be listening to. So on that note, I want to invite Ra Page, who's a Palestinian journalist, the very Palestinian voice we should be listening to, that is being covered by people, the media, such as BBC, and head of Comma Press. Ra?
Hi. Sorry, I'm not a Palestinian journalist. I'm a publisher based in Manchester. My wife is Palestinian and my kids are half Palestinian. I just wanted to add to everything that's been said. I can't really add that much, but I just wanted to just make a couple of points. The reason why I'm speaking, I don't really have a right to speak here, but the reason why I am is because 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine who is a publisher and a writer and a poet and a teacher, this is my daughter, called a publisher and a writer and a teacher of mine called Rifat Al-Araya was killed. Just to start with the cliche, the first victim of war is the truth, and the people that are at the front of that murderous campaign, at the vanguard of that killing of the truth, at the very front of it are the corporate media and the BBC. What we have to do as civilians is to listen and to be witnesses and to take records of every time they lie. We need to gather evidence, collect evidence. Every time you hear a lie, make a note of it. Make a note of the date, make a note of how they lied. Here's one. On October the 10th, just 3 days into the war, they, on BBC Newsnight, journalist, correspondent in Jerusalem, Mark Urban, repeated what he'd heard from a journalist, from another journalist, Israeli journalist, who apparently heard from an unnamed military leader that they'd seen 40 decapitated babies. That, although Mark Urban said he hadn't, no BBC reporter had corroborated that or seen any evidence, that lie was then repeated and repeated and repeated throughout the programme. Kirsty Walk just turned round and asked every guest that appeared on the programme after that, what did they think about the 40 decapitated babies? What do you think about 40 decapitated babies? And every time they said the word Hamas, they included the phrase ISIS-like, ISIS-like, ISIS-like. They kept repeating in it. At the end of the programme, they went to Hilary Benn at the Labour Party conference and asked him what he thought of the ISIS-like Hamas killing of 40 babies, 40 decapitated babies. And it was like asking a puppet to dance around this new lie. The next day, legitimised by the BBC, every front page tabloid repeated that lie. It doesn't matter if they retract it. It doesn't matter if they say it was uncorroborated. If you repeat a lie, according to the laws of slander, you are yourself, the laws of libel, you are yourself committing libel. But the BBC do it every time. They lie, they lie, they lie. They lied about the bombing of Athley Hospital, the Baptist hospital, and the fact that they believed it was Hamas friendly fire or something. They lied about the babies in ovens. They lied about Hamas stopping US passport holders from passing at Rafah. They just lie and lie and lie. And as the previous speaker so eloquently put it, it's not just the blatant lies, the big lies. It's the framing, the way in which they frame every single, like as the previous speaker was saying. Another word they used was damage. They don't attack hospitals or UN schools that are being used as shelters. Shelters get damaged. There's damage here, there's damage there. They're not attacked by Israelis. It's damage. When my friend Rifat Al-Araya was murdered 2 weeks ago, they didn't cover that story. When they were eventually asked to cover it, they included, there was one short piece on the BBC website where they included the word controversial. Rifat was a poet and a teacher, and he was the most uncontroversial person you could ever meet. The most controversial thing he ever did was teach poetry, for God's sake. He wasn't controversial, but they threw that line into the headline as a way of both-siding the killing of this writer. They want to say, as both sides, there's another side to this. They want to they're essentially saying, nothing to see here, move along, nothing to see here. He probably brought it on himself. It was probably his fault because he was controversial. What he did was he was trying to expose on Twitter some of the nonsense, the absurdity of the Israeli propaganda. He made a joke about some of the babies in ovens lies, and he then got exposed and trolled, and then he got targeted, he got identified by the IDF and the IOF for killing. And the BBC threw him under the bus, along with every other major kind of news outlet. They said he was controversial. They kept repeating a point that he'd made and how controversial it was in another BBC interview, where he compared a Palestinian resistance with the Warsaw uprising, the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, a point which other academics, people like Norman Finkelstein, has made, and he got an appearance on Piers Morgan for making that point. So it's okay for him to make it, but for Rafat to make it, the BBC throw him under the bus. He gets accused of being pro-Hamas or whatever. He gets accused of being a terrorist or somebody who's mocking death. He wasn't mocking anybody's death. He was mocking ridiculous fake news propaganda. And he gets killed. Not just him, his sister, his sister's husband, and their 4 kids. 6 people died. Okay, do you want to ask me afterwards? Okay. Yeah.
I have to ask you a question. How can you bomb a city, accommodations, civilians, blocks of apartment for 70 days, non-stop, and that could be accidental? Could you explain to me?
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. Just as another example of how the BBC are not reporting anything, I have to learn about what's going on from my in-laws. From my mother-in-law told me this morning about how they're going from house to house in Jabalia camp. They're blowing up the front doors. The army are then storming inside. They're dividing the families, the men from the women and children. They're putting all the men in one room and they're shooting them. And the women are left in another room, and they throw a small bomb into that room. Bombs that are designed to injure them but not kill them. You won't hear about that in the news. Christmas is not just about celebrating the birth of Jesus for Christians. It's also about the killing of the innocents. The story also includes the story of King Herod going around door to door killing children in Bethlehem. That is what is happening in Jabalia right now, and the BBC are not reporting it. They're not reporting it. So what do? We just have to talk amongst ourselves. We just have to keep communicating amongst ourselves. There is a culture of silence imposed on us at every level of every stage of our life, every part of our life, whether it's in our schools, in our workplaces, in pubs, in our culture, in our general gatherings. We're not expected and we're not allowed to talk about it. My auntie went to a panto the other week at the Palace Theatre. She had a tiny little Palestine flag pin on her jumper, and she was asked to take it off. This was the Palace Theatre. She was asked to take it off and given a token and told to come back at the end to collect it. Otherwise she wouldn't be let in. When things like that happen to you, get your phone out, say, sorry, I didn't hear that. Whilst you get your phone out and film it and collect the evidence. That's all I've got to say. Free Palestine. Thank you, everyone.